Hey, this is me building and strategizing a $2 million a year business in public. I made 128 grand in profit last month, and next month I want to hit 167K. So the way this works is I start with some Q&A, then I do some growth stats. I look at my progression over the course of the last 24 hours, and then I finally round it out with some live strategy. And boy, do I have some great news for all of these today. So we're going to start with everybody's first, obviously, the main reason why my comments have been blowing up like crazy over the course of the last couple of weeks, which is the QA. And this is all of the work that I've done from the last few QAs. As you can see, we have answered some frickin' questions. I'm going to be pulling these from my daily updates channel. This is my main one. No, this is my daily updates channel. So you can see we are growing pretty quickly. And let's scroll all the, it's funny that Consider Captions mentions Ty Lopez right over here. I haven't read the question, but the guy's team just reached out to me and he wants me to do like a coaching call as part of his community. So that'd be pretty interesting. I'm not really sure if I want to do that. I haven't really figured out, what the value prop is for me. Obviously, I'm kind of a rising, the word rising star, the phrase rising star to me feels kind of gross, but like I do consider myself like a rising star in the space. He's like a very well-established guy in the space. So there might be some sort of overlap there, but I'm also it's very important to me who I associate with for reputational reasons. And, I've heard a couple things in the past about how these programs don't always live up to the hype. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to look into it on my own. I'm going to see, maybe purchase a program, play around with it a little bit and make that decision for myself. Because, if I haven't actually gone and done the thing, I don't really think it makes any sense to believe secondhand sayings. Anyway, Well says, hey, King, I want to know how you fulfill your agency clients. You probably receive a lot of inbound leads. How many of them do you actually book a call with and why? I'm assuming you receive around 70 inbound leads per week and only choose to work with one. Don't you think you're leaving a lot of money on the table by not scaling your agency services? I do, but it's just it's a time thing, right? Like if I were to spend all of my life, not all of my life, but if I were to spend, the next 2 weeks setting up and scaling my agency services, hiring substantially more people and so on and so forth, like I'd make a little bit of money, right? But the question isn't, aren't you leaving money on the table? It's, is the amount of money you'd make doing that more than the amount of money you'd make if you spent time and energy on, say, content? And so I've no doubt in my mind that agencies are great, but there is that gap just in terms of like money, per unit that I spend on my agency versus per unit time that I spend on my info product. I do, love doing the service implementation, the fulfillment and stuff like that. You just got to also understand that like it's a lot trickier and a lot more delicate. Like whereas content, I can just consistently produce a larger volume of content. And then that content just like exists and it just leverages, it just multiplies. With agency services, you typically on retainers, you have to, you have to do a lot. Like you have to maintain the quality of the service. Every new project is an opportunity for some sort of screw up. I don't know. To me, like the revenue just seems a little bit more fragile. Somebody that's been primarily in agencies and is just now moving over to content production, I think that's a big issue. Let me just make sure that I'm not dropping any frames here with OBS. One sec, because I had this issue earlier and I'm not trying to do this new recording setup. Okay, no, I don't think I am. Hopefully I'm not, but we'll kind of see. So, do I receive 70 inbound leads per week? No, I do not. That would be 280 inbound leads per month. I do not receive anywhere near that volume right now. I probably receive like one, I would say, qualified interested party per business day right now. So about 20 per month, 20 to 30 per month. I do get a lot of I got a ridiculous number of fake and BS inquiries, people just testing my funnels and stuff like that. So I actually had to implement an AI first pass system, which is kind of neat. Where basically like, if I receive a query, basically what happens is I pass the whole query through like an AI content moderator. And I just check to see, are there any swear words? Is there any BS here? Is it just like ASDF, ASDF, ASDF? And so like, I don't know, if 3 per day come in, then after this filter, I get maybe like 1 per day, realistically. And these are what I'd call qualified leads. And you also got to keep in mind, that I'm not it's not like I'm not doing anything with these, right? What I'm doing right now is I'm referring these. So I refer these to partners and then I make 15% flat when they close the deal. Okay. So it's not 15% of the same amount of money that I'd be making if I did the sales myself, because I get to command a lot more money from this sort of stuff because I obviously have the authority and people want to work with me. But, realistically, the differential isn't making no money to, I could be making 100% of the money. It's more like, if you take into account and try and estimate the difference in how much I'd be able to charge versus my referral partners, it's probably like I could be making 10%. Versus if I scaled up a whole agency and, like built systems to make this work and stuff, I could probably be making like 50% margins. So it's like 10% versus 50%. So, it's not 0 to 100%, which what you might be thinking about. It's 10 to 50, which is kind of like a 40% 40% rev gap. And now it's like, okay, like how big could I actually make the agency? Like could I scale it to $100,000 per month in the next, I don't know, 60 days, let's say? If so, that 100K a month times 0.4 is actually only 40K a month. And in order for me to do this, it's a lot of extra work. And in order for all of this to continue producing, it's fragile. And in order for this to keep on going, I have to manage a lot of people. And I just hate managing people. I prefer to find killers that can just manage themselves. But the reality of the situation is, unless you constantly have some sort of external force, most human beings will eventually drift off of the beaten path, myself included, right? I'm not immune to this. So that's my strategy. So my question is, could I make 40K a month in profit in easier ways? And that's basically what the whole purpose of this has been over the course of the last few weeks. It's like, like if the differential between 128 and then 167 is what? It's 39K. I think it was 39 or 38K, right? So $39,000, like this is basically the same thing. I could make this money a lot easier through content, I find. So that's what I'm doing right now. But yeah, I have some, don't get me wrong. I'm cooking. I'm doing a couple things there. I hope that helps though. Hope that provides you some context. Okay, Powell says, the 15-minute call strategy is brilliant. I subbed to you around 2.5 to 5K. Don't regret any seconds spent watching your content. Thank you so much, man. The growth was inevitable considering how much value provided with every vid. I got one question. Could you please share a template of the current sheet file where you track your YouTube and Instagram growth to copy? I also started my journey. I'd love to document my growth journey similar to you. Thank you in advance. Yeah, sure. I'll share the template. It's no problem. The brand stats template. It's nothing magical though. Like I haven't done anything here. Basically, I just have the date over here. And then I just map the dates manually. And then I put in the subscriber counts in this column. And then I just have a growth, like a formula where I just subtract the previous day, the current day from the previous day. And that kind of gives me this growth. And then what I've done here is I've just plotted this basically. Just allowed myself to map all of my different content channels. And I'm not doing that for daily updates. I'm only doing that for my main YouTube, which is over here. This is my main. And then this over here is my IG. So I'll show you guys in a second, me actually adding it. But for now, just to make Powell's time worth it asking me this question and to thank him for doing so, I'm just going to make a copy and we'll call this brand stats for Powell. Sorry, I know I'm screwing around with my mic a little bit here, but I have a really weird setup where my computer's actually like elevated and it's kind of very close to falling. So bear with me. Yeah, there we go. So I'm going to share that with you. No problem. Let me actually just reply with this thing. Copy this puppy over. And then you can just copy this yourself, okay? Hope that helps, man. Thank you very much for that lovely question. Okay, and then Albert PLD, the last one I'm going to answer for today, just for time reasons, says, hey, Nick, thanks for answering my question about chatbots. My reason why I haven't focused on chatbots is exactly what you said. They're not that good, and most businesses seem to prefer, at this point in time, a human-like chatbot or just no chatbot at all. I agree things have been changing in the AI space with chatbots. Would like to see a video on you building a human-like chatbot that does various tasks like FAQs, appointment setting, and etc. Thank you. Yeah, great request for sure. I'd love to make one of these. I think we're getting to the point where you could basically have like a general manager sort of deal, although I'm still not necessarily convinced. Okay, so one thing that I actually wanted to talk about for a while is the value in having one of these AI assistants, okay, that you can talk to through voice versus just doing it yourself is basically how much faster is the AI agent than you are if you were to try and do it yourself, right? Like, just to be real, like, do I really need a secretary in 2025 if I can just create a calendar appointment myself in 5 seconds? The value isn't really there anywhere near as much as, in the past, maybe, when in order for me to juggle my calendar and make sure that everything worked, it actually required like a lot more bullshit, basically, day to day. So the question is more, like at what point does the differential get so small or so minuscule, or at what point does the value get so good that I would actually have to do something like that and, get myself an AI secretary, or AI booker, or whatever. In my case, it doesn't really make too much sense because I type really fast. So I type like blazingly, inhumanly fast sometimes. I think my peak is 186 words per minute. I won a little competition on Twitter for that. And it's just because I used to play a ton of RuneScape as a kid. And in order for you to sell stuff on RuneScape, there was no copy and paste function. You literally had to go stand in a spot in the world map and you just had to type the same thing thousands of times. And I would go like smile, wavy, blue, cyan, whatever, selling 400 GP. I basically just got really, really good at saying the same thing over and over and over again. So for me, like when I have a choice between do I write it myself or do I have AI write it, like a lot of the time I just write it myself, right? Also just like general fluidity with a computer, right? Like if most people talk at 150 to 200 words per minute and it takes you a few words to like suggest an action to AI and then you also have some lag time, like how much faster could you just do it yourself if like you were good at computers, good at this QWERTY keyboard input interface or whatever, knew a couple of hotkeys, right? So that's my big rant on AI assistants and chatbots and like why I generally think there really isn't that much value as of yet. There is soon to be a lot of value though, because pretty soon, you know how earlier I said it might take you 10 words to tell a model to do something that you could just do in 2 seconds with your fingers. Well, pretty soon, we're now getting to the part where we're starting to chain together actions. So it's not just 10 words to tell it to do one thing. Now it's like 10 words to get it to do like 50 things. Hey, you know, get me a flight to over here, right? Like now we're actually getting into leverage, for instance, where the model's going to go look up flight numbers really quickly, going to hit some API. It's going to, you know, do some cost comparison based off some other metric or whatever, and then deliver it to you. So yeah, I think we're basically right on the crux of that, to be honest. I still don't think the chatbots and the models are at that point yet, which is why I've been reluctant to do a lot of videos on them, but I'll absolutely be building a human-like chatbot to do stuff like this at some point in the future. Mehmood, who's in my community, Maker School, one of the earliest members and the guys that's like making good money, he sells like VAPI chatbots, and he did a talk just a few days ago about, well, I guess it's like a week and a half or 2 weeks ago, on how he does the VAPI chatbot stuff. And like, you know, some of what he can do with a simple prompt is pretty crazy nowadays. So it might be time for me to do like a VAPI video or something as well. Okay. Sean says, hey bro, great idea, multiple channel. I'm just going to ask this last question because it seems pretty easy. How are you planning on posting each one? Would love to buy that automation if possible. TBH. This is what I set up yesterday as part of the work that I'm doing. This is what I set up. Check this puppy out. So essentially what we're going to have is we're going to have a shorts pipeline. Okay. This is what it is going to look like. The SOP here, and I haven't set any of this stuff up yet, so bear with me. But the SOP here is we have a bunch of statuses. We have a queue status, then we have a timestamp status, an editing status, a ready to publish status, and then a publish status. This is a self-regulating pipeline where editors will go through and they will do what I'm about to tell you completely on their own with no supervision. So when I upload this file or any other file to a Google Drive folder called footage, this is going to trigger a make.com automation. Footage. There you go. This is going to trigger a make.com automation that watches for those files. It's then going to go into a shared shorts folder that I have with editors and create a parent folder called the name of the file. Okay, so the name of the file that I upload. So I'm going to have to start naming the files. Basically, that's the one extra thing I'm going to have to do. So let's say I call this daily short, I don't know, February 24th or something. This will now create a parent folder called daily short February 24th in some other folder. Then it'll create 2 subfolders, one called source and then one called deliverable. Then it'll move that initial file from the footage folder over to the source folder. And then it'll use all that information to create a task in this pipeline. Okay. So just to be abundantly clear here, to show you guys how this works, basically, I have a new upload, and then I make a file structure that looks like this. Name, and then we have 2 subfolders, source, and then one called deliverable. Then I take this, and then I move it over to source. So now we have 3 folders, name, source, deliverable. Both of these are nested within name. Okay. And then we also have a ClickUp task. Now, if I go back to ClickUp, what we end up doing is we grab the source and we paste it right over here. So now the editors will have access to any of the files that I upload in footage, and it'll be nicely organized within its own folder structure. Then what they do is their task is when this hits the queue like this, okay, I'm just going to move this up here to show you guys. And I think it's right over here. What their task is their task is to watch the source video and then create subtasks using timestamps. They'll say, okay, 23 seconds to 59 seconds, great piece of footage. 138 to 343, awesome, I'm going to clip that. 902 to 1030, awesome, I'm going to clip that. Okay? And then what they do is, pardon me here, because I've just got to change the statuses back. Then what they do is they take this, so they move it to timestamps as they do the clips. And then when they're actually ready to start editing, they move the parent task to editing, and then they basically go through and they edit all of these. And when they're ready to publish, they move them to ready to publish. So this is basically going to be their workflow. And then when they're ready to publish, what they do is they get the file, they upload it to the deliverable folder, and then they actually just link the specific file right over here. So in addition to us having a top-level deliverable folder, that link that I showed you a second ago to like the top-level parent one, we're also going to have a specific one to that file, which is going to allow us to do a bunch of cool stuff later. And then to top it all off, we're going to assign it to specific channels. So, I just added some basic ones here. I don't know if these are actually going to be the names of the channels. Then once they're done, they move the parent task to ready to publish, and then somebody comes around and actually publishes them for me. Now, I could totally automate this. I could 100% automate this. I may, but I've done some reading, and it looks like the way that Reels are and Shorts and stuff like that in general is if you automate the publishing of them, aka you hit it using the API, you actually get substantially less reach. So I don't recommend doing it for reach reasons. I don't know. I've read a few pieces on the subject by popular content creators that have run like kind of quasi studies. I don't know how much stock I want to put in them, but for now, considering that I just hired a team and I paid all this money, I'm just going to have them take care of that for me. But that is the strategy. That is more or less what we're going to be doing. So I appreciate that, Sean. If you want, you can just take the blueprint. You 100% just take the blueprint. Like I'm gonna give it to you free, no problem whatsoever. I'm probably gonna be adding more stuff onto the system. So maybe check back in with me in like a couple weeks after I get the ball rolling on this and we start actually running tons per day and we get to like the 150 a month part. And then at that point, I'll give that one to you as well. All right. Thank you very much for the questions. Everything sounds like it's going well on that end. And then if I haven't already answered your question, then just drop another one down below. I'm more than happy to assist you there. And let me just heart this so that consider captions point gets out as well. Okay, let's do some brand stats really quickly. Looks like I screwed up here and I added a beta character to growth. It's because I'm obviously a beta male. Okay. Nick Saraev YouTube channel. First of all, let's just do my shorts one or my daily updates. 787 subs. Whew. Nonstop growth over here. My Instagram channel. Boy, do I have some great news for myself, I guess. My Instagram channel is now at 21,409. I've gone up by almost 1.1K again. Then my main channel here, which is obviously still driving the vast majority of my revenue, is 52,724. That was a 24, right? That was a 24. Awesome. And I just scheduled and published, or rather I scheduled a video to publish in a few days. Sorry, later in a few hours, later today, all about how you shouldn't be making a YouTube channel if you're like a first-time automation agency. So probably the shittiest video I've ever recorded, to be honest. I was not on my game, but I'm hoping that people will still find value in it. As you can see, the slope of this line is kind of going pretty good. So we might, I don't know, hit the middle a little bit closer than I was thinking. Who knows? That crossover / inflection point is going to be pretty fun. But I also anticipate I'm going to have a ton of tinier Reels channels that are all going to look like this. And they're all just going to be slowly kind of going up and down. Well, they're probably not going to go down unless I say something extraordinarily cancelable. Start being super racist or something. Yeah, no, it's not going to happen. I don't know if I'm going to add all of these to the graph stuff, but I imagine it's going to be madness. And I'm starting to get customers from this as well. I don't know if I've told you guys. Oh shit, looks like my camera stopped recording. That's annoying. Oh, you know what? It's because it's hot as hell. Okay, well, whatever. Let me just turn this off for now. And then I'll also turn off the shadow. Yeah, so what was I saying? Yeah, so when I launch all this stuff, I think the general viewership is just going to go through the roof. And then on top of that, I'm also going to get a lot more growth on my main Instagram. And then from there, I'm also going to get a lot more growth on my main YouTube channel as well. So it's just a win-win-win-win-win. It looks like I can't record videos with the sun directly on my camera because they overheat. It overheats after 20 minutes. I'm going to have to remember that for later. Okay, great. Yeah, and actually, believe it or not, that's actually what I wanted to show you for the strategy as well. I wanted to run you guys through the stuff I'd set up for ClickUp. So I'm actually happy that somebody asked me that question before. I think it was Steve or Sean or yeah. So I have the ClickUp basically. And then you know what's really cool? Obviously, I still have some recording kinks with the camera here, but you know what's really cool is I've sorted out the source record stuff. So the guy I'm working with on this project right now, Facundo, he just ran me through like the bitrate stuff for OBS, and he's like, "Oh, okay. Like the reason why this isn't happening is because you're just recording at like an abysmal bitrate right now." I think I was recording 2 streams at like 12,500 or 13,500 or something. So my CPU just maxed out. And I saw this now, and I'm recording at a much lower bit rate, and I don't need to be recording as high of a bit rate as I was before. So now I can actually record my source and the other piece of footage as well. And that's exactly what I'm doing. I'm putting these in a Google Drive right after. Today is basically going to be the first test of my super high volume short strategy, which is going to be pretty sick. So we'll see how all that stuff goes. I'm obviously super stoked about it. But yeah, I think I'm going to leave it there on the strategy front. I appreciate everybody that's stuck with me so far. If you guys have any questions that you'd like me to answer, feel free. And you can't see my face right now. So I'm just going to show you guys the thumbnail of the most recent video that I'm uploading. That's me. Goodbye, that's supposed to be a hand waving. Goodbye, everybody, and thanks so much for being with me. Looking forward to tomorrow. Cheers.